The night sky burned with broken fire, trails of metal falling from the heavens. A lone human ship had lost control. Twisting through the atmosphere of a world no chart carried, the crash shook the quiet valley, scattering sparks into the forest like dying stars. From the wreck crawled a man, clothes torn, his face smeared with blood and dust. His name was Daniel, a traveler without family, a wanderer of forgotten roots. His body trembled, lungs raw with smoke, yet his heart beat steady. Every step forward was a fight against weakness. Every breath a struggle not to collapse. The forest was strange. Glowing plants lit the path with pale blue veins. Shadows moved softly between the trees, shapes that did not belong to earth. The air carried a smell like crushed flowers mixed with iron. Heavy and sharp, Daniel knew he should stay quiet. Hide, rest, but his body was failing, his knees bent under him. He stumbled, fell into the cold grass, and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, someone was there. A figure bent over him, small, delicate, with skin that shimmered like silver in moonlight. Her hair flowed like threads of white fire, and her eyes glowed faint blue. She gasped when she saw his human face, her hand hesitating in the air. Daniel whispered, voice broken. Water. She looked around, panicked, then pulled a flask from her belt. Cool liquid touched his lips, and he drank like a dying man. Her fingers brushed his face, gentle, almost afraid in that moment. Daniel thought he was dreaming. The girl's expression shifted, fear, wonder, something deeper. She had never seen a human before. Her people told stories of them, stories filled with warning. Yet here he was, weak, wounded, not a monster but fragile. She leaned closer, studying him. Her breath trembled, her eyes wide with curiosity. And Daniel, half-conscious, dizzy with pain and exhaustion, moved without thought. He pressed his lips to hers, a small, desperate kiss. A mistake born from weakness, from the need for warmth. A kiss that lasted only a heartbeat, but it was enough. The girl froze, eyes wide as though lightning had struck her soul. She pulled back, hand covering her mouth. Her flask slipped from her fingers, spilling water into the glowing grass. No, she whispered, her voice breaking. Her legs shook as she stood, her gaze fixed on him with fear, not anger. From the trees, 6 more figures appeared. They were older, taller, yet their faces carried the same glow. 7 sisters in all, each one marked by beauty, each one different as the stars. They looked from the human to their youngest sister, and then to her lips touched by him. Silence filled the clearing, so heavy Daniel felt it press on his chest. The eldest sister stepped forward, her voice like stone. You fool, she hissed. Do you even know what you have done? Daniel blinked, still dizzy, still weak. He tried to stand, but the pain forced him down again. I meant no harm, he rasped, but they were not listening. Their eyes carried shock, horror, and something else, a fear that reached deeper than the human could understand. The youngest sister trembled, her hand still on her lips. Tears gathered in her glowing eyes. I didn't mean it, she whispered. Yet the law was already alive, burning in their blood. The kiss was not just a kiss, it was a vow written in the oldest rules of their kind. The 6 sisters circled him, their steps slow, deliberate. The eldest spoke again, voice cold as night. By law of the ancients, 1 kiss binds, and 1 kiss does not bind to one alone. It binds to all. Daniel stared, confusion drowning him. All. What do you mean? He asked. The sister's eyes hardened, the eldest's voice cracked like thunder. You are now bound to all 7 of us. The forest seemed to close in, the glowing plants flickering like frightened candles. Daniel's breath quickened, his heart pounding in disbelief. He wanted to shout, to deny it, to call it madness. But their faces told the truth. This was no trick, no joke. This was law older than their blood, older than their names. The youngest sister fell to her knees. Her tears hit the soil like drops of glass. Her voice trembled as she spoke the words he would never forget. Human, you kissed me. Now you belong to all 7. Daniel's body felt colder than the night air. His mind spun. He had come here broken, desperate only to survive, and with 1 desperate kiss, he had changed his fate forever. Above them, the sky thundered, the stars seemed to whisper, and somewhere deep in the valley a bell tolled. A sound ancient and heavy. The law had been awakened, and the human had no escape. The 7 sisters stood before him, bound together by destiny, and Daniel realized, trembling, that the galaxy had just written him into a story he could never leave. The forbidden kiss had sealed his fate. The clearing was silent except for the soft hum of glowing plants Daniel sat weak on the ground, still dizzy from the crash. The 7 alien sisters stood around him, their eyes bright with fear and anger. He didn't understand their words fully, but he felt their meaning pressing like chains on his chest. The eldest sister, tall with silver braids flowing like rivers of light, stepped closer. Her voice carried authority. The weight of generations, human, you do not know what you have done. Our laws are older than our stars. One kiss is not a game, it is not affection. It is a binding stronger than chains of steel, and now, you are tied not to one but to all of us. Daniel's heart pounded, his lips dry. He shook his head, trying to fight the dizziness. I didn't know. I was hurt. I didn't mean. But his words fell into the night. Meaningless before their stares, the youngest sister, the one who had given him water, looked down in shame. Her small hands trembled as she whispered, I didn't stop him. I let it happen. Now the vow is sealed. The other sisters turned on her. Voices sharp. You were reckless, child, said one with burning golden eyes. You have cursed us all, spat another, her hair dark as shadows. But the eldest raised her hand, silencing them. This is not her fault. The law does not bend, the law does not forgive, it is alive. Older than our blood. Daniel forced himself to his feet, swaying but stubborn. Then break it, he said, his voice hoarse. Break your law, set me free. The sisters' faces grew colder. The eldest's eyes pierced him like ice. You do not understand, human. Breaking the vow means death, not only your death, but ours too. The bond is shared if one dies. All are broken. The words hit Daniel like a storm. His knees almost gave way again. He had stumbled into something far larger than himself. A mistake had become a chain linking him to 7 lives. The youngest sister looked at him with wet eyes. She whispered, I didn't want this, but the bond has chosen. You are ours now, and we are yours. The forest around them seemed to listen. A low wind carried a sound, like ancient voices murmuring through the trees. The sisters exchanged glances, their faces pale. They knew what would come next. Far in the distance, a great bell began to toll. Its sound rolled over the valley like thunder. 1 strike, 2, 3, each heavier than the last. The eldest closed her eyes, whispering words Daniel could not understand, but her tone was heavy with dread. The elders have felt the bond awaken, she said finally. They will summon us. They will judge if the human is worthy, or if he must be destroyed before the bond grows stronger. Daniel froze, his stomach twisting. Destroyed? He whispered. He had survived a crash, fought through pain, only to be judged by laws he did not know. His fists clenched, though his body was weak. I won't be destroyed, he muttered. But the sisters only watched him with a mixture of pity and fear. The youngest stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. Her voice shook but held a strange softness. If you are gone, we are gone too. Our lives are tied to yours now. That is why they fear you. That is why they may try to kill you before the bond deepens. Daniel looked into her glowing blue eyes and saw truth. This was no dream, no hallucination. He was bound to them, whether he wished it or not. The sisters began to move, guiding him toward the valley. The glowing forest opened into a wide plain where lights shimmered like fireflies. At its center rose a great stone hall carved into the mountainside. Torches burned blue fire at its gates. Figures were gathering, tall, robed, their shadows long under the moon. Daniel's breath grew shallow as they approached. Every instinct told him to run, but his body was too weak. And there was nowhere to hide. The eldest sister spoke softly as they climbed the steps. You must be silent before the elders. They will read your heart. If you lie, the bond will break, and all will die. He swallowed hard, his hands shaking. What if they don't accept me? He asked. The eldest's eyes glimmered with sorrow. Then your life will end before the dawn. The doors of the hall opened with a deep groan. Inside, the air was heavy with incense. Carvings covered the walls, scenes of warriors, of unions, of stars falling into the sea. At the far end, an ancient fire burned in a great bowl, its flames green and silver. Around it stood the elders, their faces like stone. They turned their eyes on Daniel, and he felt his soul stripped bare. One spoke, voice echoing through the chamber. A human, bound by kiss to 7 daughters of the law. The bond has awoken after 1,000 years. Why has fate chosen him? Why now? Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't mean it. I didn't know your law. I was dying. She saved me. I never wanted to hurt anyone. The elders watched silently, the fire reflecting in their eyes. The youngest sister stepped forward. Kneeling, He is not a monster, he is not cruel, he is only human. I gave him water and he gave me kindness. Can kindness be punished by death? Her words echoed through the chamber. Some elders' eyes softened, others hardened. The fire hissed, sparks flying upward like stars. The judgment was only beginning. Daniel's fate now rested not in his hands, but in the law of the ancients. The chamber of the elders was silent, filled only with the hiss of the green fire. Daniel stood weak but stubborn, his heart thundering in his chest. The 7 sisters surrounded him like a circle of stars, each with different light in her eyes. Some looked at him with pity, others with suspicion, and one with quiet hope. The eldest elder finally spoke, his voice dry like cracking stone. The bond has awoken after 1,000 years. But law alone is not enough. The human must prove his worth, or else the bond will shatter and all shall perish. The sisters lowered their heads. They knew what was coming, the ancient test, one that no outsider had ever survived. The eldest sister whispered to Daniel, "You must face trials. Each of us will test you in a way no human has faced before. If you fail, your blood and ours will spill together." Daniel's throat tightened, his mind screaming for escape, but his body refused to run. Something deep inside him, stubborn and human, told him he had to stand. He had to try, even if the galaxy itself laughed at him. The first test began. The eldest sister stepped forward, her silver braids shining in the firelight. Her voice was stern, her eyes sharp. "I am strength. I am the shield of this family. Show me your courage. Stand against me without fear." She drew a long spear from her back, its blade glowing white. Daniel froze, his hands empty, his body weak from wounds, but he clenched his fists. Steadying his breath, she charged, her movements swift as lightning. Daniel stumbled, barely dodging the strike, the blade cutting sparks from the stone floor. The chamber echoed with gasps, yet Daniel did not fall. He stood tall, bruised, bleeding, but his eyes locked on hers without blinking. At last she stopped, lowering her weapon. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "You did not run, human. Courage burns brighter than strength. You have passed my test." The second sister came forward, her golden eyes burning like twin suns. Her voice was sharp, proud. "I am fire. I am anger. I am truth. Show me honesty. Speak, and I will know if your words are false." Daniel swallowed, his throat dry. "What do you want me to say?" "Tell us what you fear most," she demanded. Her gaze pierced him like fire. Daniel closed his eyes. He thought of the crash, of flames tearing the sky, of endless loneliness. He thought of dying without anyone to remember his name. Finally he whispered, "I fear being forgotten. I fear that my life will mean nothing." The golden-eyed sister studied him, her eyes glowing brighter. The chamber filled with heavy silence. Then she nodded. "You spoke truth, even though it burned you. You have passed my test." The third sister stepped forward, her hair black as shadow, her voice soft as silk. "I am silence. I am hidden things. I am secrets. Show me loyalty. Will you protect even what you do not understand?" She placed a small stone in his palm, glowing faintly blue. "Guard this." "No matter what," she whispered. Suddenly the chamber darkened, shadows crawling across the walls. Creatures of smoke rose from the floor, snarling, their teeth like jagged knives. They lunged at Daniel, tearing at his clothes. Biting his arms, the pain was sharp, but he clenched the stone to his chest. He roared through the agony, refusing to let go. When the shadows vanished, the stone still glowed in his hand. The dark-haired sister smiled faintly. "You endured, you kept faith. You have passed my test." But the trials were not finished. One by one, the sisters came forward, each with her own challenge. The fourth sister, with emerald eyes, asked him to heal a wounded bird with only his hands. Daniel failed again and again, but he never stopped trying. Finally, his warmth and persistence calmed the creature until it breathed softly once more. The fifth sister, tall and proud, demanded he lift a stone heavier than his body. His arms shook, his back screamed with pain. But inch by inch he raised it from the ground. Refusing to quit, she bowed her head, acknowledging his will. The sixth sister, eyes like storm clouds, asked him to face his memories, visions of Earth, of people he had lost. Of pain and regret filled his mind. He trembled, cried out, but he did not break. He stood through the storm until the visions faded, her voice softened. "You carry pain, but you carry it with strength." Finally, the youngest sister stepped forward, the one who had first given him water. Her hand shook, Her eyes filled with tears. I am kindness. I am hope, she whispered. Do you regret it, human? Do you regret the kiss that bound you to us? Daniel looked at her. Her eyes shimmered like broken stars, her face trembling. He thought of the crash, of death waiting for him in the forest. He thought of her gentle hands, her gift of water, her soft gaze, and he shook his head slowly. No, he said, his voice steady. I don't regret it if it means your life. If it means I am not alone, then I don't regret it. The youngest sister gasped softly, tears rolling down her cheeks. The fire in the chamber roared higher. The elders leaned forward, their eyes wide. The bond had grown stronger, alive in the air like thunder. The 7 sisters looked at him, no longer only with fear, but with something new. Something dangerous, something like belief. The test had only begun, but already the human had done what no outsider ever had. He had won a place in their hearts. The chamber fire dimmed, leaving a soft green glow across the stone walls. Daniel stood in silence, his body aching, his skin marked with cuts and bruises from the trials, yet he remained standing, breathing heavy but unbroken. The 7 sisters surrounded him in a half-circle, their eyes no longer filled only with suspicion. Something had changed, something fragile. Like the first light of dawn after endless night, the elders had withdrawn into shadow, whispering among themselves. Their judgment was not finished, but for now the tests were done. The sisters guided Daniel away from the great hall. Their footsteps echoed softly through the mountain passages. Torches burned along the walls, their blue flames casting long, shifting shapes. The youngest sister walked closest to him, her eyes lowered. Her small hands gripped the folds of her robe, twisting nervously. She had not spoken since her question, whether he regretted the kiss. Her heart still trembled with the memory of his answer. Outside, the night was calm, the valley wrapped in silver moonlight. The wind carried the scent of glowing flowers, the hush of distant waterfalls. The air felt softer here, as though the world itself was waiting. The sisters stopped at a quiet ridge overlooking the forest. There they rested, the silence heavy between them. Daniel sank onto a stone, his body finally giving in to exhaustion. He rubbed his chest, feeling the dull ache of the bond within him. It was strange, it pulsed faintly like a second heartbeat. And every time he looked at the sisters, it grew stronger, as if invisible threads tied him to each of them, pulling gently at his soul. The eldest sister broke the silence, her voice steady. You have done what no outsider has ever done. You stood against fear, pain, and truth, but the law is not finished. The bond will demand more of you. You are not one of us. Yet you are bound as if you were born to our blood. Daniel looked at her, his eyes weary but sharp. I never asked for this, he said softly. I was only trying to survive, but now, if my life is tied to yours, then I'll fight for it. For all of you. The sisters exchanged glances. Unsure what to make of his words, some turned away, doubtful. But the youngest's heart stirred. She had seen truth in his eyes during the trials. Now she heard it in his voice, raw and unpolished but real. She knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she reached out. Her fingers brushed his arm. The bond inside them flared suddenly. Like fire catching dry leaves, Daniel gasped softly, feeling warmth spread through his veins. The youngest's eyes widened, glowing brighter than before. The other sisters stepped back in shock. The eldest's voice tightened. The bond deepens. One has chosen. Daniel turned to the youngest, confused. What does that mean? Her lips trembled as she spoke. It means, I trust you. I will not fight the bond anymore. The glow between them grew stronger. Almost visible in the night, it wrapped around them like threads of silver. The youngest sister's tears spilled down her cheeks, not from sorrow, but from release. For the first time since the kiss, she no longer felt trapped by fear. Instead, she felt hope, fragile but alive. Daniel placed his hand gently over hers. I don't know your laws. I don't know your ways, but I know this. If I am bound to you, then I will not let you face it alone. Her breath caught, her heart racing at his words. The other sisters watched in silence, some with anger, some with envy, some with secret curiosity, but none could deny what they saw. The human and the youngest sister had formed the first bond. The law was no longer only chains, it was becoming choice. Suddenly, a deep sound shook the ridge, drums. Distant but growing, the sisters stiffened, their faces darkening. The eldest's hand went to her weapon. The rival clan has heard of this. They will come to break the bond before it grows too strong. Daniel forced himself to stand, his body screaming with pain. "Then let them come," he said through clenched teeth. The eldest gave him a sharp look, surprised by his defiance. "You would face warriors with no weapon, no strength left?" Daniel smirked weakly. "I've already faced death once tonight. One more time doesn't scare me." The sisters stared at him, torn between disbelief and a strange, growing respect. The youngest clung to his arm, her voice trembling. "If they take you, they take all of us. We cannot lose you now." Daniel met her glowing eyes. Steady and calm. "You won't lose me," he said. "Not while I can stand." The bond pulsed again. Stronger than before, the air shimmered faintly around them. The sisters felt it, the elders far away felt it. Even the land itself seemed to respond. The law of the ancients had been awakened in full, and the first bond between human and sister had been sealed. But as the drums grew louder, the danger grew closer. Daniel realized the trials were not behind him. They had only just begun. The first bond had given him strength, but the coming night would test if it was enough to survive. The ridge trembled under the echo of drums. Daniel's eyes narrowed as the sound grew louder, rolling like thunder across the valley. The sisters stood tense, their glowing eyes fixed on the forest below. They knew what the noise meant. Rival warriors were coming, men of the Blood Clan, enemies who hated the law and any bond that was not their own. The eldest sister stepped forward, her silver braids glinting in the moonlight. Her voice was cold and sharp. "They will come for you, human, if they kill you. The bond will break, and with it all of us." Daniel's body still ached from the trials, his arms heavy, his breath shallow. Yet something inside him hardened. He had faced death before. He had survived the fire of the crash. Now he would not run. He looked at the youngest sister who still clung to his arm. Her trembling fingers reminded him why he could not falter. Torches flared in the darkness, moving like fireflies through the trees. Figures emerged, tall, armored, their faces painted with black ash. Each carried jagged spears tipped with bone and metal. Their leader stepped forward, his voice booming. "So it is true. The human has broken the balance. He has bound himself to the seven." The sisters drew close, forming a half circle around Daniel. The eldest raised her weapon, her voice steady. "This bond is not yours to judge. Leave now, or face the wrath of the law." The rival leader laughed, his teeth flashing like knives in the torchlight. "The law is a cage. We are the breakers of cages, and tonight, we will spill his blood before it binds deeper." The warriors roared, stamping their spears against the ground. The sound shook Daniel's chest, filling him with dread. He had no weapon, no armor, only bruises and bleeding cuts. But when he looked at the sisters, when he saw the fear in their eyes, he felt fire rising in him, a fire he had never known before. The first clash came suddenly. Warriors charged up the ridge, their spears flashing. The eldest sister met them head-on, her silver spear cutting arcs of light. The golden-eyed sister unleashed fire from her hands, flames roaring against the night. The others moved like shadows, swift and deadly, but there were too many. Dozens of warriors climbed the ridge, their voices a storm of hate. Daniel stumbled back, his fists clenched. One warrior lunged at him, spear thrust forward. Instinct took over. Daniel caught the shaft with both hands. Pain shot through his arms as he wrestled it away. With a roar, he swung it wide, striking the attacker across the chest. The warrior crashed to the ground, stunned. The sisters gasped. He had no training, no power, yet his will alone gave him strength. The bond pulsed inside him, glowing faintly through his skin. Every time he fought, it grew warmer, stronger, as if the sisters' strength was flowing into him. The rival leader saw this, his face twisting with rage. "Kill him now, before the bond consumes us all." The warriors surged. Daniel fought like a man with nothing left to lose. He blocked, he swung, he staggered under blows, but never fell. The youngest sister cried out, her voice breaking. "Stay with us, Daniel. Don't let go." The bond answered her cry. Light burst from his chest, silver threads connecting him to the sisters. For a moment they felt one heart, one breath. Daniel's body moved faster, his strike sharper, his courage blazing. He fought not for himself, but for all of them still. The enemy pressed harder. The sisters strained, their power fading under the endless tide. The golden-eyed one's flames dimmed. The dark-haired one staggered from wounds. Daniel's body screamed with pain, but he refused to break. Every drop of blood, every bruise was a promise. He would not let them die because of him. At last, the rival leader himself stormed forward. His spear burned red, carved with ancient runes. He pointed it at Daniel, his eyes wild with hate. You should never have come to our world. Human, tonight, your kiss will be your curse. He thrust the spear forward. Daniel raised the broken weapon he carried. But it snapped under the blow. The spearhead rushed toward his heart. And then, the youngest sister leapt in front of him. Her hands glowed bright, silver and blue. The strike slammed against her shield of light, shattering into sparks. The rival leader staggered back, shocked. The youngest voice rang out strong despite her fear. No more. This bond is not a curse, it is chosen, by us, by him. The bond flared again, brighter than fire. Daniel felt it fill his body, healing his wounds. Steadying his breath, he rose to his feet. Eyes blazing with new strength, the sisters stood with him. Their power united. The rival warriors froze, fear creeping into their faces. The leader roared again, but his voice cracked. The bond's light spread across the ridge. It was not only power, it was destiny, and none could stand against it. The warriors began to retreat, dragging their fallen back into the forest. Their leader hissed one last threat. This is not the end. The law will destroy you all, and when it does, we will be waiting. The ridge grew silent again, torches flickering out in the night. Daniel collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. The youngest caught him, her hands trembling but steady. You stood with us, she whispered. You fought for us. Even when you had nothing. Daniel looked up at her glowing eyes, and for the first time, he realized something. This was no longer about survival, it was about belonging. The enemies had awakened, but so had the bond, and neither would ever be the same again. The ridge lay quiet after the battle, ashes of torches scattered across the stone. The rival clan had retreated, but their threat still lingered in the night air. Daniel sat against a rock, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. The sisters gathered around him, silent, their glowing eyes fixed on the bond that now pulsed from his skin. It was stronger than ever, alive, undeniable, impossible to ignore. The eldest sister finally broke the silence, her voice sharp but weary. This was only the beginning. Human, the rival clan will return stronger and angrier, and the elders will demand judgment before dawn. They will call for the final trial, the last test of the law. If you fail it, the bond will break, and all of us will perish together. Daniel swallowed hard, forcing himself to stand though his legs shook. Then I can't fail, he said simply. His voice was low but steady. The youngest sister's hand slipped into his, trembling. Her touch gave him strength, and he refused to let it go. The sisters led him back through the valley. The forest glowed faintly in the night, every leaf whispering with hidden voices. The mountain loomed above them, and within it, the sacred chamber burned with green fire once more. The elders waited, their robes heavy, their faces carved with lines older than time itself. The air smelled of incense and smoke. It was thick, suffocating, as if even the walls were holding their breath. One elder stepped forward, his staff striking the floor with a hollow echo. The bond has survived battle. It has faced trials of courage, truth, loyalty, and pain, but the law demands one final test. The fire will decide if this union is real or only shadow. The sisters bowed their heads in silence, but Daniel lifted his chin. He could feel their fear, their hope, their lives tied to his own. He could not show weakness, not now. The elder gestured to the great bowl of green and silver flames. The fire roared higher, casting sharp light across the chamber. Step forward, human, if your heart is false. The fire will consume you. If it is true, the bond will seal forever. Daniel's breath hitched. Every instinct screamed for him to turn back. But the youngest squeezed his hand and whispered, "You're not alone." Those two words silenced his fear more than anything else. He released her hand slowly, walking toward the fire. The heat licked at his skin, sharp and biting. Each step felt heavier, as if the fire itself was judging him already. Behind him, the sisters held their breath. The eldest's eyes burned with silent prayer. The golden-eyed one clenched her fists, fire trembling at her fingertips. The youngest whispered his name softly, her voice trembling like a song lost in wind. Daniel stopped before the fire. He closed his eyes and spoke, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I didn't choose this bond, it chose me. I don't understand all your laws, I don't know your ways. But I know this, I will not abandon these sisters. Not now, not ever. If my life is tied to theirs, then let my heart burn with theirs too." The fire roared higher, Flames wrapped around him, crawling across his arms, his chest, his face. The heat was unbearable, but he did not scream, he did not fall. He stood firm, eyes open, staring into the light. The sisters cried out in fear. The youngest tried to run forward, but the eldest held her back. No, this is his trial. For a moment it seemed he would be consumed, but then the fire shifted. The green turned silver, the silver turned gold, and suddenly the flames bent toward him. They did not burn him, they embraced him, flowing into his skin, pulsing through his veins. The bond within him exploded, light rushing outward like a storm. The chamber shook, the carvings on the walls glowed. The elders shielded their eyes, their faces filled with awe. The sisters fell to their knees, feeling the bond pull at their hearts. Their voices caught as they realized what was happening. The fire had accepted him. Daniel's body glowed with threads of light connecting him to each of the 7 sisters. One by one, their eyes brightened. Their breath synced with his. It was no longer just law, it was choice, it was destiny. The bond was complete, unbreakable, eternal. The fire dimmed, leaving silence heavy in the chamber. Daniel staggered, his body weak but alive. The youngest rushed to him, catching him in her arms. Her tears wet his shoulder. "You did it. You did it," she whispered. The elders rose, their voices trembling with something like respect. "The law has spoken. The bond is sealed. The human is bound to the 7, he is theirs, and they are his." But even as relief filled the chamber, Daniel saw the shadows shifting at the edge of the fire. He knew this was not the end, the rival clan would return, and the galaxy itself would not stay silent when it learned of this bond. For now, though, the sisters held him close, their eyes glowing with trust, with pride, with something deeper. For the first time since his crash, Daniel felt not like a stranger or a prisoner, but like he belonged. The final trial was complete, and the bond had been sealed forever. The sacred fire dimmed into silver embers. The chamber was silent except for the sound of Daniel's breathing, heavy and ragged. His body trembled, sweat pouring from his skin, yet his eyes were steady. The sisters gathered around him, their glowing gazes locked on the threads of light still binding them together. The bond was complete, sealed by the final trial, and no law, no rival clan, no elder could deny it now. The youngest sister was the first to move. She knelt before him, her hands shaking as she cupped his face. Her voice cracked with relief. "You didn't burn, Daniel. You didn't leave us, you stayed, even when the fire tried to take you." Daniel smiled faintly, exhaustion softening his expression. "I told you, I wasn't going anywhere." The elders stepped forward, their voices grave. "The law has spoken. One kiss has bound you to all 7 from this moment. You are husband to the daughters of the law. You are no longer outsider, but family." The sisters' breaths caught at those words. Family. Something heavier than blood, deeper than tradition. The eldest bowed her head slightly. "Human, your courage has forced even the law to bend. You stood where others fled. You spoke truth where others lied, and now you are one of us," but peace did not last. From the far valley, horns sounded low and threatening. The rival clan had not given up, they were gathering. Stronger than before, the elders looked uneasy, whispering among themselves. The youngest clung to Daniel's arm, her face pale with fear. "They won't stop, Daniel. They'll keep coming until one of us falls." Daniel's heart tightened, but his voice was steady. "Then let them come. We're not alone anymore." The bond pulsed between them, stronger now than even during the trial. Daniel could feel each of the sisters, the eldest's calm strength, the golden-eyed one's fierce fire, the dark-haired one's secret shadows, the emerald-eyed one's quiet healing, the storm-eyed one's sorrow and resolve, the proud one's stubborn pride, and the youngest's trembling but unyielding hope. They were not 7 separate lives anymore. They were one, bound together. The elders raised their staffs, striking the stone floor. "If the rival clan wishes for war, then they will face not one human, not 7 sisters, but a bond the stars themselves cannot break." Daniel stepped forward, his voice firm despite his weakness. "I am not a warrior. I am just a man who fell from the sky. But if I must fight to protect this bond, then I will fight until my last breath." The sisters stood at his side, their hands glowing, their powers shimmering in the air. For the first time, their gazes held no doubt, no hesitation. The eldest placed her spear in Daniel's hand. It burned faintly with silver light. "Then you are no longer unarmed," she said softly. "Carry our strength with yours." The mountain shook as drums thundered again in the valley. The rival clan approached, their voices rising in hate. But Daniel and the sisters did not flinch. They stepped out of the sacred hall together, their bond a blazing shield. The night sky split with storm clouds. The rival warriors lit their torches, hundreds of them, their eyes wild. At their head, the rival leader roared, "The human must die. The bond must shatter." Daniel lifted the silver spear, his body still broken, but his spirit stronger than ever. The sisters spread around him, glowing like stars in the storm, and for a moment the enemy hesitated. They saw not one human and 7 women, but a force greater than blood, greater than law, greater than death. The youngest voice rang out clear and fearless. "You will not break us, for we are bound together. By choice, by fire, by fate." The bond flared one final time, brighter than the torches, brighter than the stars. The rival clan staggered under its light, their spears shaking in their hands, and in that moment, the war they had hoped to start crumbled. Fear spread through their lines. Their leader's voice faltered, and one by one, they turned and fled back into the darkness. Silence fell across the valley once more. The wind carried only the sound of distant waterfalls and the crackle of dying torches. Daniel lowered the spear, his arms trembling. The sisters gathered close, their glowing eyes filled with relief and something deeper. The youngest slipped her arms around him, her voice soft. "You are ours now, forever." Daniel looked at her, then at the others. For the first time since the crash, he felt no fear, no loneliness. He felt belonging, unexpected, impossible, but real. A wanderer no more. He was bound to 7 hearts, 7 lives, 7 destinies. The elders' voices echoed across the valley one last time. "Let the galaxy know a human has entered the law. A kiss has become eternity. And the 7 are no longer daughters alone. They are bound together." Daniel closed his eyes, breathing in the cool night air. The bond pulsed steady in his chest, and he smiled, weary but at peace, for he had found more than survival. He had found family, he had found love, and nothing in the galaxy could take it away. Thus ended the trial. Thus began the legend. The story of the human who kissed one and was bound to 7, forever.